When I first finished the Fate Stay Night visual novel, I was completely captivated by Kinoko Nasu's writing and wanted more. That's when I stumbled upon Kara no Kyoukai, an anime by Ufotable with a dark, unique, and cool art style. I remember watching it for the first time, having no idea what I was getting into. But within minutes of that first movie, I knew this wasn't just another anime. Everything about it felt different. From the very first scene, you're pulled into this creepy atmosphere, dim cityscapes, empty buildings, the hum of electricity in the air, and this melancholy stillness that just lingers. There's hardly any expositions, no one explaining the world or the rules or who these characters are. The pacing is slow, but I wouldn't call it boring. It's meditative, every scene feels like it has a space to breathe, and that space is filled with Yuki Kajira's soundtrack, which still gives me chills to this day. The music fills with a lot of emotions, lonely, sometimes eerie, sometimes beautiful. Even though I played visual novel at that time, I was actually still new to the anime. I had mostly watched shonen shows and light-hearted rom-coms, so watching Kara no Kyoukai was like suddenly stepping into a different world. And yet, that made me love it even more. As a first-time viewer, I'll admit, it was hard to follow. The movie throws you into the middle of a story with characters you don't know and a mystery that barely unravels by the end. Shiki barely speaks and Mikia only seen in fragments. There's no clear backstory, no real explanation for her powers, or why girls are jumping from buildings. It was so confusing, but it also mesmerizing. Because even if I didn't fully understand the plot, I felt something, a kind of sorrow that I couldn't explain. And I think that's part of the beauty of Overlooking View. It's not trying to explain everything, it's trying to immerse you, to give you a taste of the world's tone before anything else. Overlooking View was also my first experience with Ufotable's visual storytelling. Their use of CGI and dynamic angles, it was all new to me back then, and it completely blew me away. It's not the most plot-driven or accessible entry, and it might be a tough start for newcomers, but for me, this was the film that whispered this series is going to be something special. Murder Speculation Part 1, the second film in the release order, but the first chronologically. And honestly, it's here where things really started to click for me. After the surreal, almost abstract beauty of Overlooking View, this chapter feels more grounded. It pulls us back a few years and gives us a clear look at the roots of everything, at who Shiki was and how she first met Mikia. It's a quiet story, but quietly important. Unlike the first movie, which drops us into the middle of things, this one feels more like a slow-burning origin story. Most of the movie is told from Mikia's perspective, and we finally get a chance to understand his character more deeply. He sees something in Shiki that no one else does. Tonally, this film is fascinating. It dances somewhere between a romantic school slice of life and a brooding psychological thriller. There are moments that feel light, almost innocent, Shiki and Mikia walking together in the snow, having awkward conversations, getting to know each other. And then, in the very next scenes, you're staring at the crime scenes drenched in blood. The way those two tones coexist makes the horror hit even more. This movie doesn't show a lot of gore, but the violence it implies is chilling. There's something unsettling about how cold the murders are. What really stayed with me was the growing tensions between Shiki and Mikia. The more he learns, the closer he gets, the more dangerous it feels. There's a moment where Shiki literally tells him to stay away, to stop following her because she doesn't know what she'll do. But he refuses, he stays. That loyalty is what makes him such an important part of this series. I wouldn't call this movie my favorite, but Murder Speculation Part 1 is one of the most essential chapters in Kara no Kyoukai. Remaining Sense of Pain, the third movie in the series, and without a doubt the darkest and most emotionally heavy one so far. From the opening moments, there's a shift in tone. It's colder, more brutal, and unforgiving. This is where Kara no Kyoukai starts becoming a really painful experience for me. Not just in terms of violence or gore, but emotional pain. We're introduced to Asagami Fujino, a new character who immediately reminded me of Mato Sakura from Fate Stay Night, both in design and how deeply tragic her story is. She's a character who has been broken physically, emotionally, mentally by forces she couldn't control. And in a lot of ways, she becomes the center of this story. This also, weirdly enough, the first movie I ever watched that showed nudity, and I remember being shocked. I was still new to the anime at the time, so this wasn't the fun kind of boobs in anime moment like you would get when people discover High School DxD. No, this was different. This felt ugly and traumatizing. And I think that what makes this movie so impactful to me. It doesn't shy away from hard topics, it confronts you with them. This film isn't afraid to make you uncomfortable. By the end of this film, I realized that Kara no Kyoukai wasn't just going to be about mystery and cool action scenes. It was going to be about people and pain and how they carry it and how they survive it and how sometimes they don't. The final scene, Shiki smiling after saving Fujino, is so subtle yet meant so much for me. It's the first real glimpse of warmth from her, the first time she allows herself to feel something again. Remaining sense of pain was the turning point for me. It was the moment I knew Kara no Kyoukai was going to stay with me for a long, long time. The Hollow Shrine is the shortest entry in the series, but don't let its runtime fool you. While this chapter might be compact, but it carries the emotional and thematic weight of a full-length film. In many ways, it's the quietest and most introspective of them all. Set directly after the event of Murder Speculation Part 1, the story picks up with Shiki caught between life and death, identity and emptiness. The majority of the films take place within that liminal space, an almost dreamlike state where time feels frozen and reality bends into something abstract. Shiki's inner conflict is the heart of the Hollow Shrine. It's here where we dive deeper into her dual nature, the tensions between the masculine and feminine personas, the murderous instinct and the human emotions, the Shiki that desire and the Shiki that suppresses. One of the most memorable parts of this movie is Shiki's awakening, the moment she received the mystic eyes of death perception. The way it's presented is stunning, the animations, camera work, and then that music. It genuinely gave me chills, one of the most beautiful scenes in the franchise. We're also introduced to Toko Aozaki in the new light. Her interaction with Shiki are layered with both care and calculations. That moment when she used magic in front of Shiki to defend herself is one of the coolest display of magecraft in my experience watching anime at that time. The fifth movie is without a doubt the crown jewel of the Kara no Kyoukai series. If the previous film were mysterious, chilling, or quietly introspective, this one is a full-blown emotional and philosophical hurricane. It's dense, relentless, and mesmerizing in a way that made me just sit back, stunned by the time the credits roll. Not only that this movie is the best in the series, it might be just one of the best things Ufotable has ever made. From the directions, to the animations, to the music, to the sheer scope of ambitions, Paradox Spiral is a cinematic experience on a whole different level. The plot this time centers around Tomo Enjo, a teenager who finds himself caught in a web of illusions, death, and deja vu. At first, it seems like his story has a little to do with Shiki or Mikia, but as the movie unfolds, everything converges in a most jaw-dropping way. The narratives shift perspective, time loops, memories blur, and the world starts to feel unstable. This film throws you into the middle of spiritual battlefield, a clash of ideology and existence. We finally meet Araya Soren, the mastermind behind much of the chaos, a man who views human lives as data. The fight scenes here are ridiculous in the best way. The choreography, the sound design, the pure adrenaline of it, it's Ufotable. And you combine that with Yuki Kajiura's music, it's just perfection. The Paradox Spiral isn't an easy movie. It demands your attention, your patience, and maybe even rewatch or a two. But it rewards you with one of the most incredible storytelling payoff I've ever seen. It's more than just a highlight of a series. It's a film that reminds me why I love this anime in the first place. After the mind-bending brilliance of Paradox Spiral, we land on the sixth movie, Oblivion Recording. And to be honest, this one has always felt a bit different. Not bad necessarily, just noticeably lighter, both in tone and impact. Almost like taking a breath after drowning in the heaviness of the last few chapters. The story this time centers on Asaka Kokuto, Mikia's younger sister, as she investigates mysterious case of memory-erasing fairies at Reien Academy. On paper, that sounds pretty intriguing, but somehow the emotional weight that made previous chapters so gripping just doesn't hit quite the same. The movie still has some high points. Yuki Kajiura's soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite tracks in the series is in this movie. And of course, Ufotable's animation is still on point. But where the movie falls short, at least for me, is in its emotional depth. Asaka, while charming in her own way, doesn't carry the same complexity or tragic weight as the other main characters. She's trying to stand out, to prove herself, but I didn't feel as connected to her internal conflict. Her jealousy of Shiki, her admiration for her brother, and her role as a student in a magical academy all felt a little undercooked compared to the previous movies. It also doesn't help that the stakes feel relatively low. Yes, there's still a connection to Araya Soren's greater plot, but it feels more like a background elements than driving force. The villain in this one, though visually creepy and interesting, lacks the presence or psychological weight of characters like Araya or even Fujino. Asaka's growth is subtle. She confronts the truth of her feelings, accepts her place in Mikia's life, and finally finds her peace with who she is. In a way, it's a coming-of-age story wrapped inside a magical mystery. And even if I didn't love the journey, I respect what it was trying to do. Of all the chapters so far, Murder Speculation Part 2 feels like the one that brings it all home. It's where everything we've seen, every quiet conversations, every violent death, every lonely night starts to feel like it was building towards something. Mikia becomes the center of this story, not as a hero with power, but as a person who simply refuses to give up on Shiki. Visually, this movie is cold. The villain this time is another of Soren Araya's twisted experiments. Another reflection of Shiki's inner conflict. But what's really powerful here isn't the final battle. It's the slow burn of emotions that leads up to it. Kinoko Nasu originally intended Paradox Spiral to be the conclusions, and honestly, it could have worked as one. But Murder Speculation Part 2 gives the series something, a soft goodbye to a long, painful past. It's not my favorite chapter, but I think it might be the most important one. And then we reach the epilogue, the quiet final whisper of Kara no Kyoukai. It's not a spectacle, not a dramatic finale, but rather a slow, thoughtful conversation stretched over 30 minutes. A conversation that, depending on your mood, might either be incredibly profound or painfully boring. This short OVA takes place after everything. After the bloodshed, after the battles, after the resolutions. It's just Shiki and Mikia talking about life, identity, and what it means to be human, or at least that's what I caught by listening to their conversations. Still, if you're a fan of their relationship or just want to soak in more of that Kara no Kyoukai atmosphere, it's a nice little send-off. But if I ever rewatch the series, I'll probably skip it. After everything, after all the death, blood, identity crisis, and emotional scars, Future Gospel feels like a quiet sunrise after a long night. It's the last major piece in the Kara no Kyoukai series, and in many ways, it's the one that finally breathed light into the shadows we've spent so long wandering through. Split into two stories, Future Gospel is a soft epilogue that still carries violence and tragedy, but also something the series rarely allowed itself to fully express: hope. In the main story, we follow two characters with different kinds of foresight, Shizune Seo and Mitsuru Kamekura. They're opposites, one burdened by his inability to act, the other chained by the inevitability of his action. What hits hardest about Future Gospel is how much it highlights growth, not just Shiki, but in the entire world of Kara no Kyoukai. Mikia is still Mikia, relentlessly kind, but now their relationship feels more solid, more complete. As usual, the visuals are absolutely gorgeous. Ufotable pulls out all the stops one more time, every frame drenched in beauty and melancholy. Future Gospel, it's about the beauty of finding peace after chaos, the quiet moments after the storm. And in that way, Future Gospel is a perfect farewell, not just to Shiki and Mikia, but to ourselves as viewers, who've taken this long, introspective, sometimes brutal journey through the darker corners of human nature, only to arrive at a place where hope finally feels earned. I didn't expect to love Future Gospel as much as I did, but somehow it became one of the most emotionally resonant pieces in the entire series for me. Kara no Kyoukai is not the kind of anime I can easily recommend to just anyone. Its heavy themes, mature storytelling, slow pacing, and non-linear structure make it a challenge to follow. Many people might feel lost before the real magic even begins. It is not an easy watch. But even so, I can't help but wish more people would give it a chance, because beneath that complexity lies something rare. Breathtaking visuals crafted by Ufotable in their early years, a beautiful soundtrack by Yuki Kajiura, and an atmosphere unlike anything else in anime. Despite its difficulty, I still love Kara no Kyoukai. It stays with me long after the credits roll. The more I watch it, the more I understand that Kara no Kyoukai is one of the most memorable anime that I've ever watched.